Incense is aromatic biotic material which releases fragrant smoke when burned. The term refers to the material itself, rather than to the aroma that it produces. Incense is used for a variety of purposes, including the ceremonies of religion, to overcome bad smells, repel insects, spirituality, aromatherapy, meditation, and for simple pleasure. Incense is composed of aromatic plant materials, often combined with essential oils. The forms taken by incense differ with the underlying culture, and have changed with advances in technology and increasing diversity in the reasons for burning it. Incense can generally be separated into two main types: indirect burning and direct burning. Indirect burning: incense is not capable of burning on its own, and requires a separate heat source. Direct burning: incense is lit directly by a flame and then fanned or blown out, leaving a glowing ember that smolders and releases fragrance. Direct burning: incense is either a paste formed around a bamboo stick, or a paste that is extruded into a stick or cone shape. History. The word incense comes from Latin for incendere, meaning to burn. Combustible bouquets were used by the ancient Egyptians, who employed incense within both pragmatic and mystical capacities. Incense was burnt to counteract or obscure malodorous products of human habitation, but was widely perceived to also deter malevolent demons and appease the gods with its pleasant aroma. Resin balls were found in many prehistoric Egyptian tombs in El Mahasna, furnishing tangible archaeological substantiation to the prominence of incense and related compounds within Egyptian antiquity. One of the oldest extant incense burners originates from the 5th dynasty. The Temple of Deir el-Bahari in Egypt contains a series of carvings that depict an expedition for incense. The Babylonians used incense while offering prayers to divining oracles. Incense spread from there to Greece and Rome. Incense burners have been found in the Indus civilization. Evidence suggests oils were used mainly for their aroma. India also adopted techniques from East Asia, adapting the inherited formulation to encompass aromatic roots and other indigenous flora. This comprised the initial usage of subterranean plant parts within the fabrication of incense. New herbs like sarsaparilla seeds, frankincense and cypress were used by Indians for incense. At around 2000 BC, ancient China began the use of incense in the religious sense, namely for worship. Incense was used by Chinese cultures from Neolithic times and became more widespread in the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties. The earliest documented instance of incense utilization comes from the ancient Chinese, who employed incense composed of herbs and plant products as a component of numerous formalized ceremonial rites. Incense usage reached its peak during the Song dynasty, with numerous buildings erected specifically for incense ceremonies. Brought to Japan in the 6th century by Korean Buddhist monks, who used the mystical aromas in their purification rites. The delicate scents of ko became a source of amusement and entertainment with nobles in the imperial court during the Heian era 200 years later. During the 14th century shogunate, a samurai warrior might perfume his helmet and armor with incense to achieve an aura of invincibility. It wasn't until the Muromachi era during the 15th and 16th century that incense appreciation spread to the upper and middle classes of Japanese society. Composition. A variety of materials have been used in making incense. Historically, there has been a preference for using locally available ingredients. For example, sage and cedar were used by the indigenous peoples of North America. Trading in incense materials comprised a major part of commerce along the Silk Road and other trade routes, one notably called the incense route. The same could be said for the techniques used to make incense. Local knowledge and tools were extremely influential on the style, but methods were also influenced by migrations of foreigners, among them clergy and physicians who were both familiar with incense arts. Combustible base. The combustible base of a direct burning incense mixture not only binds the fragrant material together but also allows the produced incense to burn with a self-sustained ember, which propagates slowly and evenly through an entire piece of incense with such regularity that it can be used to mark time. The base is chosen such that it does not produce a perceptible smell. Commercially, two types of incense base predominate: fuel and oxidizer mixtures. Charcoal or wood powder forms the fuel for the combustion. Gums such as gum arabic or gum tragacanth are used to bind the mixture together, while an oxidizer such as sodium nitrate or potassium nitrate sustains the burning of the incense. Fragrant materials are combined into the base prior to formation, as in the case of powdered incense materials, or after formation, as in the case of essential oils. The formula for the charcoal-based incense is superficially similar to black powder, though it lacks the sulfur. Natural plant-based binders. Mucilaginous material, which can be derived from many botanical sources, is mixed with fragrant materials and water. The mucilage from the wet binding powder holds the fragrant material together, while the cellulose in the powder combusts to form a stable ember when lit. The dry binding powder usually comprises about 10% of the dry weight in the finished incense. This includes mako, made from the bark of various trees from the Persei such as Persei thunbergi. Jiangyan pie in Japan has a history of kneaded incense, called neriko or awa seko. Using this method, within the Eastern Orthodox Christian tradition, raw frankincense is ground into a fine powder and then mixed with various sweet-smelling essential oils. Direct burning incense, also called combustible incense, is lit directly by a flame. The glowing ember on the incense will continue to smolder and burn away the rest of the incense without continued application of heat or flame from an outside source. Direct burning incense is either extruded, pressed into forms, or coated onto a supporting material. This class of incense is made from a moldable substrate of fragrant finely ground incense materials and odorless binder. The composition must be adjusted to provide fragrance in the proper concentration and to ensure even burning. The following types of direct burning incense are commonly encountered, though the material itself can take virtually any form, according to expediency or whimsy. Coil. Extruded and shaped into a coil without a core. This type of incense is able to burn for an extended period, from hours to days, and is commonly produced and used by Chinese culture. Cone. Incense in this form burns relatively fast. Incense cones were invented in Japan in the 1800s. Cord stick. This form of stick incense has a supporting core of bamboo. Higher quality varieties of this form have fragrant sandalwood cores. The core is coated by a thick layer of incense material that burns away with the core. This type of incense is commonly produced in India and China. When used for worship in Chinese folk religion, cord incense sticks are sometimes known as joss sticks. Solid stick. This stick incense has no supporting core and is completely made of incense material. Easily broken into pieces, it allows one to determine the specific amount of incense they wish to burn. This is the most commonly produced form of incense in Japan and Tibet. Powder. The loose incense powder used for making indirect burning incense is sometimes burned without further processing. They are typically packed into long trails on top of wood ash using a stencil and burned in special censers or incense clocks. Paper. Paper infused with incense, folded accordion style, lit and blown out. Examples are carted darminia and papier d'armenie. Rope. The incense powder is rolled into paper sheets, which are then rolled into ropes, twisted tightly, then doubled over and twisted again, yielding a two-strand rope. The larger end is the bight, and may be stood vertically, in a shallow dish of sand or pebbles. The smaller end is lit. This type of incense is highly transportable and stays fresh for extremely long periods. It has been used for centuries in Tibet and Nepal. The discs of powdered mugwort called moxa, sold in Chinese shops, and herbalists are used in traditional Chinese medicine for moxibustion treatment. Moxa tablets are not incenses. The treatment relies on heat rather than fragrance. Reed diffusing. A reed diffuser is a form of incense that uses no heat. It comes in 3 parts: a bottle, container, scented essential incense oil, and bamboo reeds. The incense oil is placed into the container and bamboo reeds are then put into the same container. This is done to absorb some of the incense oil, as well as to help carry its scent and essence out of the container and into the surrounding air. Reeds typically have tiny tube openings that run the entire length of the stick. Oil is absorbed by the reed sticks and carried along the entire reed. These are do-it-yourself incense sticks that do not burn and look almost identical to typical incense sticks. Production. In direct burning, the raw materials are powdered and then mixed together with a binder to form a paste, which, for direct burning incense, are then cut and dried into pellets. Incense of the Athonite Orthodox Christian tradition are made by powdering frankincense or fir resin, mixing it with essential oils. Floral fragrances are the most common, but citrus such as lemon is not uncommon. The incense mixture is then rolled out into a slab approximately 1 centimeter thick and left until the slab has firmed. It is then cut into small cubes, coated with clay powder to prevent adhesion, and allowed to fully harden and dry. In Greece, this rolled incense resin is called Moscow Libano, and generally comes in either a pink or green color denoting the fragrance, with pink being rose and green being jasmine. Direct burning. In order to obtain desired combustion qualities, attention has to be paid to certain proportions in direct burning incense mixtures. Oil content. Resinous materials such as myrrh and frankincense must not exceed the amount of dry materials in the mixture to such a degree that the incense will not smolder and burn. The higher the oil content relative to the dry mass, the less likely the mixture is to burn effectively. Typically, the resinous or oily substances are balanced with dry materials such as wood, bark and leaf powders. Oxidizer quantity. The amount of chemical oxidizer in gum-bound incense must be carefully proportioned. If too little, the incense will not ignite, and if too much, the incense will burn too quickly and not produce fragrant smoke. Mixture density. Incense mixtures made with natural binders must not be combined with too much water in mixing, or over-compressed while being formed, which would result in either uneven air distribution or undesirable density in the mixture, causing the incense to burn unevenly, too slowly, or too quickly. Particulate size. The incense mixture has to be well pulverized with similarly sized particulates. Uneven and large particulates result in uneven burning and inconsistent aroma production when burned. Binder. Water-soluble binders such as Mako have to be used in the right proportion to ensure that the incense mixture does not crumble when dry, but also that the binder does not take up too much of the mixture. Some kinds of direct burning incense are created from incense blanks, made of unscented combustible dust immersed into any suitable kind of essential or fragrance oil. These are often sold in America by flea market and sidewalk vendors who have developed their own styles. Such items are often known as dipped or hand-dipped incense. This form of incense requires the least skill and equipment to manufacture, since the blanks are preformed in China or Southeast Asia, then simply scented with essential oils. Incense mixtures can be extruded or pressed into shapes. Small quantities of water are combined with the fragrance and incense-based mixture and kneaded into a hard dough. The incense dough is then pressed into shaped forms to create cone and smaller coiled incense, or forced through a hydraulic press for solid stick incense. The formed incense is then trimmed and slowly dried. Incense produced in this fashion has a tendency to warp or become misshapen when improperly dried, and as such must be placed in climate-controlled rooms and rotated several times through the drying process. Traditionally, the bamboo cores of cord stick incense is prepared by hand from Philostachys heterocycler CV. Pubescens, since this species produces thick wood and easily burns to ashes in the incense stick. Through this process, known as splitting the foot of the incense stick, the bamboo is trimmed to length, soaked, peeled, and then continuously split in halves until thin sticks of bamboo with square cross-sections of less than 3 mm. This process has largely been replaced by machines in modern incense production. In the case of cord incense sticks, several methods are employed to coat the sticks' cores with incense mixture. Paste rolling. A wet, malleable paste of incense mixture is first rolled into a long, thin coil, using a paddle. Then, a thin stick is put next to the coil and the stick and paste are rolled together until the stick is centered in the mixture and the desired thickness is achieved. The stick is then cut to the desired length and dried. Powder coating. Powder coating is used mainly to produce cord incense of either larger coil or cord stick forms. A bundle of the supporting material is soaked in water or a thin water glue mixture for a short time. The thin sticks are then evenly separated, then dipped into a tray of incense powder, consisting of fragrance materials and occasionally a plant-based binder. The dry incense powder is then tossed and piled over the stick while they are spread apart. The sticks are then gently rolled and packed to maintain roundness while more incense powder is repeatedly tossed onto the sticks. 3 to 4 layers of powder are coated onto the sticks, forming a 2 mm thick layer of incense material on the stick. The coated incense is then allowed to dry in open air. Additional coatings of incense mixture can be applied after each period of successive drying. Incense sticks that are burned in temples of Chinese folk religion produced in this fashion can have a thickness between 2 to 4 mm. Compression. A damp powder is mechanically formed around a cord stick by compression, similar to the way uncored sticks are formed. This form is becoming more commonly found due to the higher labor cost of producing powder-coated or paste-rolled sticks.